Great being here. And isn't it beautiful up here? When my brother and I developed this building back in 2015, I'd always get up here and just be amazed at the beauty of our city, Madison. And I would often say, you know, we have the second best views in the city, but for being up on the Capitol. And then somebody said to me, he said, no, you got the best views because if you're on the Capitol, you can't see the Capitol. And I thought, dumb or Norwegian, okay, good one. Well, I'd like to start by thanking my family. My two daughters, Britta, Carlin, my son-in-law, little Jack, and Georgia and Maddie. And of course, I'd like to thank my siblings, my brother Jim, my little sister Kirsten, and my brother Steve. Thank you so very much for being here. So why am I here today? It's really simple. I love my country. And everywhere I look today in my country, I see it failing. And sometimes I don't recognize what's happening. So many came to this country, to this beautiful country, to chase this American dreams. That's what my ancestors did. If you could allow me, let me tell you a little bit about the decision my ancestors had to make. My great-grandfather and great-grandmother, who had 5 children, lived on a little farm called the Hovde farm, which means the head of the mountain outside of Voss, Norway. We're all Norwegians. My great-grandfather wasn't the oldest son. That meant he didn't inherit the farm. And because of that, with his growing family, that farm, because it was a very small farm, could not support the family of his older brother and his other siblings, and obviously his growing family. So they knew they would all have to disperse at some point. So they made the difficult decision, but the bold decision, to go to the land called America. That land of freedom and prosperity. And that's what they did. They took off pre-modern technology and took 5 kids with my great-grandmother pregnant off the top of that mountain. I don't even know how they got them down to Voss, and then through boats to London and on to Ellis Island. And then through Ellis Island, they took trains up into Canada, through Canada, and then dropped down into the Dakotas, where they took wagon trains down to a farm of Norwegian immigrants that went before them. Now, when I say they had nothing, I mean they had nothing. They had the clothes on their back, a couple bags, a few more clothes, and a few precious items. They lived in a shack of about 20 by 30. 1 door, 1 window, 1 bed, 1 stove. That's where they had their 5 children and where my great-grandmother gave birth to their 6th child. Well, they couldn't stay in that spot long because that was their friend's farm and they needed to move on. So they emigrated to northern Wisconsin by Hayward, a logging camp, where my great-grandfather went to work for them. But after a season, my great-grandmother said, we can't stay here. Why? She didn't like her kids being raised by roughneck loggers. And secondly, the company paid in company conscript. That means they didn't pay in company dollars. So they could never build any savings. So what did they do? They moved on. My great-grandmother was the smarter one, so they moved on and then settled in Stoughton. And that's where my grandfather was raised. And at 9 years old, he started working for a butchery. And he worked for that butchery all the way up until his late 20s, until the Great Depression, then he got laid off. Well, he was an industrious young man, and he went to a guy who had a real estate shingle hanging out, who was selling residential real estate. He got a job there, but after about a year, that gentleman said, I can't make it, and he folded. and my grandfather took it over. And through hard work, sacrifice, he built that to support his family of 5. Which is, after my father came out of the military, he went to work for him and was able to provide for me and my siblings. Now, why do I tell you that story about my family? For 2 reasons. One, we all have those stories in our history. Every single one of you has these stories where your ancestors made the bold decision to go pursue that American dream, that dream of freedom and liberty. And by the way, those are words that are just thrown around a lot and people don't appreciate them. But when you come from oppression and tyranny, that matters. Or that dream to have some prosperity and to make a better life for your children. That is the American dream that's brought people from all over the world, generation after generation, to come here, to America. Sadly, though, that American dream has been in decline over the last number of years, and particularly the last 3.5 years. Economically, we've racked up more debt in the last 3.5 years than our country's first 230 years. Think of that for a moment. Think of that for a moment. Our interest costs on our debt now are the second biggest expenditure of our federal government, bigger than our Defense Department. Because of that, our central bank, the Federal Reserve, has had to buy all of this debt and increase the money supply, which has created the bout of inflation that we've just had. As a result of that, the standard of living of real incomes for Americans have been in decline. We're hammering our middle and working class and our elderly who live on fixed incomes. It's not right. And most importantly to me, we're leaving our children and our grandchildren saddled with all this debt, not leaving them better off, which is what the hope of every American generation always has been. Then if we look at our domestic security, I've never seen it decline so rapidly, so fast. We had one of the, dumbest ideas of all time, defund the police. How has that worked out? Horribly for our major cities, particularly. Crime has exploded all over our country. Or how about our southern border? We have brought in 9 to 12 million people in the last 3 years into this country, illegally. We don't have the housing nor the medical services and infrastructure to care for our own citizens, much less 9 to 12 million people. That's basically double Wisconsin in 3 years. And what also has occurred is a humanitarian crisis. We're losing 100,000 young Americans largely to opiate and fentanyl overdoses every single year. And where does that fentanyl and opiates largely come from? Our southern border. And what's happening to those people on the journey, it's not just a humanitarian crisis for our country, but do you know how many lives are lost on that journey to get here? How many people's life savings have been wiped out by the human trafficking cartels? And they've lost 100,000 children that they can't account for. Let me assure you, more than a few of them have ended up being sexually trafficked. I know this all too well. I have homes, or my brother and I have homes all over the country or all over the world. And we have 3 in Central America that deal with issues like this. Then when I look at our international standing, Maybe the most embarrassing day in my life as an American was our exit from Afghanistan. Now, I had no problem with wrapping up the war, but to pull out our soldiers, leave American citizens and Afghan supporters who risked their lives to support us behind was unconscionable. Why do you think those Afghan supporters were running, holding onto planes, falling off? Because they knew they would be executed shortly after that. Well, what is the consequence of that decision that day? Our adversaries have immediately moved all over the world. Russia on Ukraine, Iran through their proxies Hamas and Hezbollah on Israel, and China now is saber-rattling more and more about moving on Taiwan. The world has become a more dangerous place in just the last 3 years. But to me, maybe the worst thing that's unfolded, and this has been going on for a while, but certainly has gotten worse in the last 3.5 years, is the division we're experiencing as a country. We're tearing ourselves, we're allowing politics and political parties to divide us. And that is wrong. We're ripping apart our families and our friendships over politics. We can't tackle these major problems we're facing in this country without coming together. We need to come together as a people. We have to stop putting on the red jersey or putting on the blue jersey and competing against each other. We need to put on the red, white, and blue jersey as Americans and come together. Now, President Reagan, to me, was the most consequential president of my lifetime. And he had many wonderful quotes. But I thought his most important one, and his most consequential one, and probably the most timely for us right now, is freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It's not passed on to our children through our bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. So because of that, because of where my country is, because of my love for my country, I have decided to run for the U.S. Senate. If the great people of Wisconsin decide to elect me, I promise you I am going to go after and fixing our economic issues. I am going to... Politicians, in large part, don't understand how an economy works, and certainly not our modern financial economy. We need economic competency brought to Washington, D.C. And we have to stop driving ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. We have to create policies that expand our middle class and our working class. Because that's what makes a country strong, a big, vibrant, healthy middle class. And it's what supports a democracy. I will also support policies to create greater domestic security. We have to put the interests of innocent people and victims before criminals. We have to secure our southern border and immediately and end the humanitarian crisis that is going on right now today. Internationally, I will support positions that strengthen our position in the world. And I believe in peace through strength. And lastly, I will work tirelessly to try and unite our country. I will reach across the aisle. I don't believe what's going on in Washington works. In the world of business, if you want to get things done, you have to compromise. Now, does that mean I will compromise my principles? No. But I will work with anybody to try to advance our country and this state's interest. Now, if I may address Senator Baldwin. For the last 9 months, you and your Democratic allies have been playing a lot of silly games, sending protesters to my house, making up lies, playing a lot of dirty tactics. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to stoop to that level. I don't believe in the politics of personal destruction. That is what has helped put our country in the position we are today. But what I will do is I will hold you accountable for your track record and your performance over 25 years in the U.S. Senate and Congress, and where our country has failed over that time, and for all your votes that has left this country riddled in debt that is impacting my children and my grandchildren and everybody in this country's children and grandchildren. That I will hold you accountable. So, if I am chosen and elected by the people of this great state, I will make you 3 promises. 1, I will work tirelessly on your behalf. I'm used to working hard. I didn't get here by not working hard, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves for the people of this great state and for our country. 2, corruption in Washington has become prevalent. Career politicians who all they do is put their interests of getting reelected first and taking corporate donations and corporate special interest money. I won't take one of their dollars. I can't be bought, and I will not be bought and will not take any corporate special interest. And third, I will always put the people of Wisconsin and this country first. Now I have 3 questions for you. Are you ready to go fight for your country? Yeah! Are you ready to be uniters and healers for your country? Yeah! Are you ready to restore the American dream? Yeah! Thank you all for coming. God bless you. I wish you all the most wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you all on the campaign trail. And for those who couldn't make it here, please send your prayers and your good wishes. Thank you all.